Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Yes, sir. Time for broadcast excellence once again, hosted by me, your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, behind a golden EIB microphone. Looking forward to chatting with you today. Telephone number is 800-282-2882 and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Donald Trump's approval rating back up, zooming up to 46% in Rasmussen. Now, before you discount that, I happen to mention this today to people, and when I found out, because I'm a powerful and influential member of the media, I had advance notice that Rasmussen was going to publish this result, so I'm spreading it around to some friends and buddies. They said, Rasmussen, come on, nobody pays any attention to Rasmussen. I said, well, you should, because they were the most accurate predictor of the presidential election in 2016. Gallup doesn't even do this kind of poll anymore because they were so wrong so often. Their results vacillated and they spiked different directions that they've given it up. The ones you don't need to trust, folks, are the media drive-by polling units. Those are the ones that are questionable. The Rasmussen result seems to be pretty solid, and it's based on substance. Trump is killing it on this trip, and you can see this. The evidence is the way the drive-bys are trying to destroy him yet again on the basis of looking awkward during weird handshakes and just meaningless things like this. They're like kids now. Well, they've always been like kids. But if it weren't so damaging, it's comical to watch this. But we'll have more on that as the program unfolds. GQ magazine. How many of you in this audience read GQ magazine? I doubt that many of you do. Gentleman's Quarterly, GQ stands. There's very little about gentlemen in this magazine. It's just a strict far left rag anymore that is disguised as a fashion magazine for sophisticated and elite men. Anyway, they have named their Citizen of the Year. GQ. Do you know who it is? How do you know? If you don't read GQ, how do you know this? It was on the news. It was on the news. By the way, speaking of on the news, have you heard there's this big back and forth between Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys, and Roger Goodell. And it looks like Jones is trying to sabotage Goodell's contract renewal. Yeah. And, that probably, shouldn't count Jerry Jones out prematurely. But one of the things that's leaked, a couple of supposedly wired NFL insiders at ESPN, Chris Mortensen and whatever. They reported that Goodell has demands that we haven't heard before. Goodell's demanding an average over the length of the term of the contract, $49.5, paid $50 million salary, plus health insurance for the family, plus the lifetime use of a private jet. And I honestly, folks, when I see this, wait a minute, if you're going to earn 50, isn't that enough to buy your family health insurance? And isn't that enough to go out and make a deal to have a jet? I mean, there's any number of companies you can do this with. You can do a company called Wheels Up. You can go net jets. There's any number of ways that you can have access to a private jet every day without actually owning one. I mean, the kind of jet that Goodell would want would cost $50 or $60 million, but he could get access to one without anywhere near that kind of money. But, of course, this is not how the elites do it. The elites never use their own money for any. Remember Jack Welch? I love Jack Welch. Jack Welch is a great guy. He's the CEO of GE for the longest time. And when he was a CEO of GE, they had a deal with Boeing where they converted the Boeing 737 to what was called a Boeing business jet. And it looked a little different. It was a Boeing 737, but it had a sky-high rear tail fin. I mean, this thing, you look at it and you think it's a deformed airplane. It's much higher, and of course, the designers design it that way on purpose, but it is how you distinguish between a normal 737 and a BBJ. And those things are $75 million. I mean, they're not cheap, 60 to 75. It's a Boeing 737. So Jack Welch, when he retired from GE, wanted the use of one of those for the rest of his life and Boston Red Sox season tickets. Oh, and a company apartment on Columbus Circle in Manhattan. What are you going to use the $75 million for? Answer, nothing. That's sweet music if you can play it. Anyway, GQ, Gentleman's Quarterly, Citizen of the Year, none other than Colin Kaepernick. So, the Citizen of the Year wears Fidel Castro T-shirts and Che Guevara T-shirts. The GQ Citizen of the Year wears socks that depict police as pigs on them. The GQ Citizen of the Year proudly announced that he does not vote. And the GQ Citizen of the Year takes a knee during the playing of the national anthem because he says he cannot salute and honor a flag or country in which the cops target and murder people of color. That's the GQ Citizen of the Year. Let's dial it back to Friday. Fox News Channel, the all-star panel with Bret Baier. Special report with Bret Baier. It's about Roy Moore. And Bret Baier wanted to get, journalists do, they get a response from both sides whenever there's a controversial issue out there. And so Bret Baier and the Fox News Channel special report with Bret Baier, the all-star panel, they went out and they got Pelosi as their Democrat. And they looked and they looked and they tried to find a Republican, and apparently they couldn't because they used me. A Democrat and Republican to talk about Roy Moore. For the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi. For the Republicans, it's me. And here's the bite.
This is the House Minority Leader, Nancy Pelosi, and Rush Limbaugh today. Take a listen.
In all of these cases, it's horrible. It's disgusting. It's sexual harassment. But in this case, the hypocrisy of it all, they all pretend to be this, that, and the other thing, but he publicly espouses himself the Ten Commandments. He should step aside. They should say that, too.
The Democrats circle the wagons around their perverts, do everything they can to protect them, and the Republicans can't wait to throw them all overboard. The simple fact of the matter is the Republican Party wants this guy gone, but he's not going to leave. They had to use me. By the way, I don't mind. Don't misunderstand. I'm just thinking it's just, there's how many Republicans on Capitol Hill, how many elected Republicans, but where'd they go? They came right here, my friends of the EIB. But it's true, the Democrats do circle the wagons around their perverts. In fact, Mike, I need you to be ready, standing by on audio soundbite number 6. David Brooks was on the Charlie Rose Show on PBS on Friday night and swerved into something that we have been pointing out here since the 1990s, since the Bill Clinton second term. And it was not a focal point of the show, and Charlie Rose didn't even really react to this when David Brooks said it. David Brooks is the conservative columnist at the New York Times and is the conservative half of the Shields-Brooks commentary team on the NewsHour that used to be with Jim Lara. And so what Brooks basically said was the tolerance of Bill Clinton and his sexual scandals made sexual harassment easier. Now, folks, I don't want to overdo this, but this is something we've been pointing out on this program, and not just here, a lot of places. Remember, this happened in 1990, what was it, 6 or so, whatever the Lewinsky thing was. It was right as Fox News was kicking up. Fox News was not even up at half speed yet. That's how far back ago this was. Fox News kicks off in 1997. The Lewinsky stuff happens about then. So basically it's some of the conservative websites and blogs, and of course this program and some other talk radio programs that had sprung up. And I remember when every Democrat under the sun came around to defend Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton said, "I did not have sex with that woman, not a single time ever. Miss Lewinsky, whoever. I did not lie. I did not ask anybody else to lie. I got to get back to work for American people." And everybody believed it. Here come Madeleine Albright, representing Clinton's cabinet, walked out the White House. Everybody called this woman, this intern, 19-year-old's trailer trash, a liar. I mean, you know the drill. The Clinton War Room and the Limbaugh eruptions team got going, and everybody in the media and everybody on the Democrat side circled the wagons, just what I said, around the pervert, and they did everything they could. The feminists gave it all up. The feminists totally cashed in every ounce of credibility they had to defend Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton did the same thing. And we warned what this was going to lead to, the normalization of this kind of stuff, and particularly if it's practiced by Democrats. And the point that Brooks is making here, and that we all made, is that this Hollywood stuff, all of the sexual harassment that we're hearing about, you can, I mean, some of it predates Clinton, but Clinton getting away, not just getting away with it. Not only did Clinton get away with, he was promoted. They went out and they said, it's nobody's business. It hasn't gotten in the way of him doing his work or his job. It's just sex. It's nobody's business. Everybody does it. In grand jury testimony, Clinton was caught committing perjury, lost his law license for a year, but that is secondary to the fact that everybody involved, from the media, the Democrat, all the way down, did everything they could to defend this guy. And it also normalized the whole concept of a Lewinsky as not being sex. And so it spread through schools and everywhere, just the actual occurrence of the incident, the Lewinsky, and it became something known as, it's not even sex, and so it's not really a big deal, is if you're not going to condemn it, when it happens in the Oval Office, the President of the United States stooping an intern, 19 years old, not his wife, when you're not going to condemn that, you send a message. When you are going to abort 1.3 million kids every year, you're sending a message, a cultural message. And so Brooks swerves into this with Charlie Rose. Here it is from the audio soundbite. Charlie Rose says, all these sexual harassment cases, it's a significant societal change for sure, David, don't you think?
The uncomfortable thing for a lot of progressive, frankly, is how much did the Clinton thing create this whole environment? How much did tolerance of Bill Clinton create the environment in which the rest of this was given permission?
How much do you think?
I think it had a factor. And if you don't draw lines in these big cases, then you don't draw lines in the little cases. We saw Republicans, tolerating what Donald Trump was accused of doing. And today we're seeing this astounding case where Republicans in Alabama are tolerating what Judge Roy Moore is accused of doing. It's a sign of how partisanship has replaced everything else. Partisanship can blind you to morality, toward the truth. Partisanship has become the idol of our time.
Look, let me help out here. I'll tell you what is understandable is when only one side continues to get away with it. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's collusion with the Russians, like Hillary buying that dossier, or Bill Clinton and his cavorting with a 19-year-old intern. If one side, the Democrats, constantly get away with it and are never held to account, and if the media and the Democrats circle the wagons and not only do they tolerate it, but then promote the perp. I mean, Dan Rather totally made up stories and documents about George W. Bush and the National Guard. He was exposed as having done it. And what did the journalism community did? They gave him 2 brand new awards. They created new awards and had 2 dinners to honor Dan Rather for his service. They circle the wagons. They knew that if they joined the parade of condemning Rather, they were condemning their own industry. So rather than do that, they circle the wagons, held a couple of awards dinners for Rather, and proclaimed him to be a great journalist and so forth. When one side gets away with it all the time, and when one side is rewarded with applause and laughter for getting away with it, well, the other side, it's not an abandonment of morality, but it does have roots in partisanship. It results in the other side in a sort of, look, you do it, we're going to do it. You can't condemn us if you don't get condemned for it, and this kind of thing. It's not it's not due to morality here. It's due to unfairness. And people on our side are tired of watching our people driven out of office on innuendo and allegation while the Democrats and the media and the world circle the wagons to protect all these perverts. Now, Brooks is right when he says that the uncomfortable thing for a lot of progressives is the Clinton thing created this whole environment. The left have been forcing the acceptance of more and more sexual deviancy for the last 50 years. They've been demanding it. They have been forcing it. They've been telling people this or that kind of sexual perversion or deviance you must accept. You will like it. You will love it. You will not condemn it. But it gets kicked into high gear with the Clinton behavior in the White House 20 years ago, and now we've come to the results of that. Everybody's shocked and surprised. We have Hollywood imploding on itself due to massive abuse and deviancy. Are we shocked we see it? If you can get away with it in the highest office of the land, if you can win as a result of it, if you can be promoted, what are young people supposed to think? Particularly young people who care about being hip and cool and how all of that ends up being defined. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but David Brooks, Charlie Rose, tolerance of Bill Clinton made sexual harassment easier. Brooks thinks that the whole Clinton experience, getting away with it, being promoted, what a cool guy, what a great guy, only set the stage and the atmosphere for more and more of it. If you can get away with it at the top, and if you prosper, then what's the message? All right? David Remnick, writing at The New Yorker, the headline, The Weinstein Moment and the Trump Presidency. Yes, that the left is setting the stage here. They're beginning the process of trying to blame Trump for this exploding sexual harassment, not Clinton. David Brooks doesn't know how deeply he stepped in it. That's not the meme. The narrative is that this is all Trump's fault. The massive Hollywood media claims are going to be the drive-by media backdrop to take the president. They're going to bypass Clinton, and they're going to try to attach all of this, Harvey Weinstein, all the rest of this, they're going to try to attach this to Donald Trump. And this New Yorker piece here is the beginning phase of this effort. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day, your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, executing assigned host duties flawlessly. Zero mistakes. I want to grab a phone call quickly here because all it took was one mention of the rumor about Roger Goodell's contract, and the phones are ringing off the hook here about the NFL. So we're going to start in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Dave, what's happening? What's up?
Hi, Rush. College professor dittos.
Thank you, sir. You're a college professor?
Yes, sir.
Wow. I mean, you're conservative, obviously. You're rare.
Oh, absolutely.
Rare breed.
Those young skulls full of mush.
Well, very, very courageous of you to admit this publicly.
Hey, I had a quick question for you on the NFL. The latest controversy that popped up, I guess, on Thursday after Richard Sherman got injured and everybody freaked out everybody's talking now about that Thursday night football is unfair because it doesn't give teams that play on Sunday enough recovery time.
Yeah.
I was curious as to your take on that, and has that controversy been around for a while, or is that something new, just kind of the latest of all the attacks?
That's a great question. It actually hasn't. It's only in the last couple of years that the injury aspect and ratings decline aspect of Thursday night football have been mentioned. Thursday night football has been a staple of the NFL for years, just not every Thursday. I can remember during the 80s and 90s, you'd have 2 or 3 of them a year. Usually when the World Series and the NFL did not go up against each other, the NFL would move a game that they were having later in the season to a Thursday night game. The Steelers played a bunch of them against the Houston Oilers and San Diego Chargers, I remember. Nobody complained about them when they were once or twice, maybe 3 times a year. And then the NFL started talking about an 18-game season, and that started a bunch of people reacting to that. The Thursday night games were fine and dandy when they... Now, some people didn't like them at the outset, but not for the reasons they're giving today. The reasons that are given today on Thursday night football, well, it's not enough time for the players to recover, there's too many injuries and blah, 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 or it's too much football. There's too much football, and that's causing the ratings to decline. Those are symptoms. Thursday night football has been amazingly popular in the past with none of these concerns. I think these concerns are just being voiced now because there's so much trouble throughout the league that the league is looking for what they believe are plausible explanations for the problems. The NFL's like anything else. It's cyclical. Injuries are cyclical. Injuries to stars are cyclical. Ratings go up and down, although this is the second year in a row that ratings have been down, and that is unusual. The NFL was on a solid growth rate for over a decade until last season when they first chalked it up to the election. And now they're chalking it up to, well, there's too many injuries. The stars are not playing. And Thursday night football. And that's why there's so many injuries. And that's why players don't have time to recover. That's why the games are no good. It's not that the games are no good. It's the schedule's no good. There just are fewer compelling teams to watch this year. And that's cyclical, too. Every season is a roll of the dice. But I don't believe, when the NFL was roaring and when it was at the top of the heap and when it was just steamrolling and there weren't any negatives about it at all, not to speak of compared to now, nobody complained about Thursday nights except occasionally the players from the standpoint that it's really, really tough to recover. But each Thursday night team gets the next Sunday off, so they get a 10-week, it's like a second bye week, and they all get one. So I think all this stuff is situational. And I think if the league were going great guns, if there weren't any controversies, if the attendance was up, TV revenue was up, and everything else the same, the injuries, you wouldn't hear so much negativism about Thursday night football. But it's all cyclical, and it's all reactionary. And very little of it, I think, is the criticism it would withstand the test of time. I'm not watching much of the NFL this year, but back in the years I did, I was happy that it was a Thursday night game in the NFL. I loved it. The more, the better. I'm not of the opinion that Thursday is too much football. Now, I have different reasons for not having as much interest in it or watching it as much. I think these excuses are born of panic and situational crisis, and that they will eventually go. I can tell you this, that nothing's going to change. I mean, they're not going to get rid of Thursday nights because there's too much money, and they're already losing money now. They're not going to throw away that revenue source. It's network TV money. It's additional advertising money. They're not going to throw it away. They might modify it by trying to cancel some of them, not having quite as many, but that's going to be tough to do as well. They just have to weather the storm. Appreciate the call. Who's where are we headed next? That would be Mark in Freeland, Pennsylvania. Hey, Mark, how are you doing, sir?
Pretty good, Rush. Yeah, I'm retired Navy, and I was thinking about this boycott over the weekend of the NFL. And I started thinking that the NFL, the way it currently exists, is on downhill, and it's never going to be what it was. So I was thinking that if and when they scrap this league finally, they should come up with a new one based on the military, called maybe the American Heroes League or the Patriot League. And the teams, the matchups could be like the Philadelphia Phalanx against the Denver Drones, or the Detroit Delta Force against the Kansas City Commandos with a K.
I think we got a ways to go before we get there. This, even though revenue is down, the league is still rolling in money, and they're going to play it out for as long as they can, and try to withstand whatever these storms are that they do believe are seasonal and cyclical. And in that instant, they're missing something that's going on here. Just like the left cannot figure out why Trump won. And, there was another, I think a Politico went to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and they went out and tried to find Trump voters. The media is desperate to find Trump voters who have abandoned him, who want to abandon him or thinking about him, and they can't. No matter where they send reporters, they can't find Trump voters that are in any way unhappy with Trump right now. But they're not going to stop trying to find them. And they do their best to mock these people and laugh at them, make fun of them, put words in their mouths and this kind of thing, and make them look like absolute hayseeds. And they're not going to. There's a bit of this same kind of thinking going on in the NFL. The denial of why they're in trouble, the denial of why there's less interest in the game, the denial of why fewer and fewer people are attending and watching on TV. They come up, Thursday night football is not why ratings are down. Thursday night football and the lack of time for players to recover is not why fewer and fewer people are attending games, patronizing sponsors. You know what else I saw? It might have been Gary Myers in the New York Daily News yesterday, writing about the misery of this NFL season and why it's been so miserable. And he referenced the Papa John's pizza account threatening to leave the NFL. And his attitude was, so what? So what? So a pizza guy's leaving the NFL. So what? And, it struck me that I wonder how many people that are in this game, from the media to the owners, executives, everybody, the players in it, how many of them realize what the golden goose is? I can't relate to that cavalier attitude about a heavy sponsor. The attitude was, well, okay, so we lose that. The NFL is still a $75 million proposition, or $1 billion, whatever it is. It's still a massive. And Papa John taking his pizza pie and going home is not going to make a difference. That's a dangerous attitude to have. Sponsors and fans and all pay the freight here. They are the golden goose. And a cavalier attitude about people willing to invest their businesses in this league and in this business is a bit short-sighted, if you ask me. Yeah, okay, maybe one sponsor, Papa John flying the coop, but what if 2 or 3 more do, and then 4 or 5 more? What if they're not replaced? It begins to add up. And it would seem to me that within this universe, there ought to be a sense of either recognition, respect, or importance for everybody that's involved in this league being wealthy and helping it grow or maintain its current status. I just think there's a whole lot of denial in this league and cavalier attitude about what their real problems are, because their real problems are political, because they have politicized this league. And so that's where the problems reside, and they just refuse to take that seriously or deal with it seriously anyway. I appreciate the call, Mark. We will take a brief time out and come back. Trump with a fabulously funny tweet about Kim Jong-un And, folks, there is the beginnings here of a major contretemps between Trump and the intelligence agencies, and especially some former Obama intel people. It's quite interesting. We'll get back to that after this. And we are back. Rush Limbaugh, half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. You know, it's a good point. I've been reminded it may not have actually started with Bill Clinton, although I think in the current generation and modern era, we'd have to say that it did. But the media made excuses for JFK. I mean, there were women trooping in and out of that White House. And Jackie knew about it. And then there was Bobby Kennedy. I mean, there was some reference. Well, I don't know about the Marilyn Monroe. I don't want to get into details about the specific randiness out there. But the point is that when it was with JFK, it was studiously, purposely ignored. Things about FDR were studiously, purposely ignored. But in both the case of JFK and Bill Clinton, it was after the news was known, after it became known and it was learned, they were promoted and became bigger than ever. And our point all along has been is that sends a message. I'll mention your Harvey Weinstein. Now, seriously, for just a second, Weinstein doesn't need, and don't misunderstand me here, Weinstein doesn't need any external pushes to engage in his behavior. But if you're Weinstein and you are buddy with Bill Clinton and Hillary, I mean, if you're funding them, if you're raising money for them, if you're bundling and donating yourself, and if you're traveling around with them on the Lolita Express owned by Jeffrey Epstein, if you're doing all this stuff, and you see Bill Clinton, after getting caught, lionized, celebrated, defended, lied for, and you're traveling in the same circles and doing similar things, well, why should you expect any different kind of reaction or treat within that universe, which includes the media? And for the longest time, everybody did look the other way. Remember, everybody knew is the story. Everybody did look the other way, not to mention Weinstein was bullying people, and it seems like he had half of the PR firms and media on his payroll. But he got away with it for all of these years, even though people knew about it. If you're Weinstein, why do you ever worry about getting caught? If you're Weinstein and your big buddy Bill Clinton out there, the big dog, gets to convene the Clinton Global Initiative every year for the express purpose of attracting women from all over the world to come to New York as your playthings. And then if one of them gets too public about it, your wife will come out and destroy them, i.e. Hillary and the bimbo. If you're Harvey Weinstein and somebody else, why not? Why wouldn't you get the idea that you can engage in this stuff with impunity, particularly within that universe of people, the Democrat Party or the American left? Now, here's the Trump tweet, and this is classic because the media did not get that Trump was making a joke, which is what makes this funny. This may be one of the funniest tweets you've ever heard. Let me read it to you. Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh, well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that'll happen. Now, the left and the media is melting. Presidents shouldn't talk like this. Presidents shouldn't be insulting foreign leaders like this. Is just not how it's done. This isn't presidential. This isn't the proper decorum. So it establishes, once again, these people don't have a sense of humor. Not only do they literally cannot sense humor. It just doesn't occur to them. But their hatred, their willful hatred of Trump is so visceral that they're incapable of seeing satire or parody. I mean, this is hilarious. He just called Kim Jong-un short and fat while denying that he ever did it. It's hilarious. And they're all just beside themselves about this. Now, when it comes to intelligence, on Saturday, Trump said, this makes me laugh too. Trump said that Putin insisted during a meeting on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit that Russia didn't interfere in the election, and that he believed Putin when he told him. He said he didn't meddle. Trump told reporters on Air Force One. I asked him again. You can only ask somebody like this so many times. I just asked him again. He said he absolutely did not meddle in our election. He didn't do what they're saying he did. Trump added that whenever they had met, Putin denied ordering Russia's election meddling. I believe, Trump said, I really believe that. When he tells me that, he means it. But he says, I didn't do that. I think he's very insulted by it, telling you the truth, which is not a good thing for our country. Then Trump said he was surprised at the blowback his comments had received. What I said there is that I believe he believes it, and that's very important for somebody to believe. I believe that he feels that he and Russia didn't meddle in the election. Well, why would Putin? Obama told him to stop it. Has everybody forgotten that? Let me remind you when we get back. Don't go away. Now, you people have forgotten. Obama brought this up in the spring of 2016. Everybody's worried about Putin meddling. Obama said, don't worry about it. I saw Putin and I told him to cut it out. And the media said, this is so great. Our guy is so tough. Just told Putin to cut it out. Right. Doing that which I was born to do, and therefore having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network, at the distinguished, the prestigious, and unique Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies and Advanced Anti-Leftist Anti-Media Studies. We study it all here, and we learn from what we study. 800-282-2882 if you would like to be on the program. Email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. You know, this tweet that Trump sent out about Kim Jong-un and the media reaction to it. I've used this description before. You get this laser pointer and you play if you have a cat. You can drive the cat nuts with the laser pointer. The cat can never figure it out. Some people think it's cruel. If you just keep doing it, the cat will continue to try to chase it. It'll paw it. It'll try to catch it. And no matter, as long as you do it, the cat, now my cat eventually will wear out for a while, but if I come back in 2 or 3 hours, it's like I've never done it. And the cat goes bonkers. And if I slowly point the laser up the wall, the cat will try to swat it off the wall. One day I put the pointer on one of the dogs. That was fun. Anyway, I think that is how Trump deals with the media. I think it's equivalent to that. I've made this point before. These Trump tweets, Trump's speeches, they're like the laser pointer to a cat. Trump drives these people insane, and primarily with his tweets. And they can't nail him down. They can't pin him down. They can't figure it out. All they do is react in ways that demonstrate they are the ones who don't get it. This tweet, why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh, well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen. You know what's going on? Here's what the media hasn't picked up on, I don't think. Now, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think we've reached a point here, and there will be exceptions to this where I will be shown to be wrong. But I think we live in an age where more and more of the general population of the country recognize now that the drive-by media is basically a shill for the Democrat Party. And if they don't think that, they are still arriving at the conclusion that the media is not balanced and it isn't fair and it isn't unbiased. I really believe more and more people are waking up to this. Now, there are a number of reasons for it, but not the least of which is the media itself. It's hard. This past year and 13, 14 months now, it's hard to miss that there is outright hatred for Donald Trump on the part of the media. And I think this has caused people to notice it more now than they ever have. Plus, there is social media that more and more people are shown examples of this stuff. In addition to the 25, 30 years that we've been pointing this stuff out. I think we're reaching this point. Now, we're nowhere near overcoming them. I don't want to misunderstand, but I think we have reached a point where more and more people are privy to it. And I think that's how you can end up. I mean, stop and think of it this way. The media has been on a nonstop destroy mission. Really since before Trump was elected. But especially since. And here's Rasmussen out today with a 46% approval. But Trump ought to be, if this were the media, if this were the era of 2000 to 2004, Trump would be in the teens. Trump would be at a 20% approval. Remember how long it took them to drive George Bush down to the 30s? It took them 6 years of relentless assaults on Bush. And it reached the feverish point with the war in Iraq, dovetailing with the war on terror. And this is even more intense than that. This is even more pointed and more personal than that. And the media's partisanship has become more obvious because they are doing less and less to hide it now. And I think this is one of the things that continually has them off the rails, is that they no longer have the universal power to bend and shape the opinions of a majority of Americans. And the evidence for that is they continue to send reporters out to areas of blue states that voted for Trump. After all of these months of assaulting Trump and destroying Trump, they're looking for evidence that it's worked, and they can't find it. And they really are beside themselves. They are. If you read these stories, their rage is inescapable, and their rage is at the voters, who should have known by now, should have seen the light by now, should have believed what the media has been inundating them with. And these people remain loyal to Trump, and so the media writes of these people as they're the biggest fools and dunderheads on the planet. I just think we've reached a point where the media is no longer automatically accepted as the source authority. On Saturday, Trump said that Vladimir Putin insisted during a meeting on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit that Russia did not interfere in the election and that he believed that Putin meant it. Trump said he didn't meddle. He said he didn't meddle. It was on Air Force One. I asked him again. You can only ask so many times, Trump said. I just asked him again. He said he absolutely did not meddle in our election. He did not do what they are saying he did. And he went on to say that whenever they do meet, that Putin always brings it up and that Putin always denies ordering Russia's election meddling. Then there was media blowback to this, as you can imagine. And Trump's reaction to the media blowback was to say he was surprised by it. What I said there is that I believe Putin believes it. And that's very important for someone to believe. I believe that he feels that he and Russia did not meddle in the election. Now, let's go back and compare what Trump has just said about Putin to what Barack Hussein said to the Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev. This was shortly before the 2012 presidential election. And Obama said to Medvedev, and they were talking about the downsizing of the American nuclear arsenal. And Obama, it was an open mic that I don't think Obama knew was open. It was caught. It has been broadcast. And Obama said to Medvedev, look, this is my last election. After this election, I'll have a lot more flexibility. Tell Vladimir to be patient. There was no media blowback. There was no outrage. There was no anger. They didn't barely even report on this. Had it not been for the open mic, nobody to this day would know that Barack Obama had sent a message to Vladimir Putin to relax, take it easy, that after Obama wins re-election in 2012, he'll have a lot more flexibility to get serious about downsizing the U.S. nuclear arsenal. You add to that it appears that Hillary Clinton, the Democrat National Committee, which Hillary was running at the time, and Barack Obama's FBI indirectly paid Russian operatives to dig up dirt on Trump. That's some flexibility, and that's some meddling. And speaking of meddling, Obama spied on the Trump campaign and that dossier that they paid for. This is important to remember. The dossier served as the basis for this ongoing investigation of Trump. It is the basis. And no less than John Brennan, Obama's CIA director, intimated as much. And Comey has said he took it serious. This whole thing was made up. It was bought and paid for by Hillary. It forms the basis of this absolutely obscene, absurdly wasteful, and connected to no reality investigation of Trump and people in his orbit. What we don't know is if FISA warrants were granted on the basis of this dossier. But this is, Kimberly Strassel wrote about this last week in the Wall Street Journal. This is, in terms of dirty tricks, maybe the biggest dirty trick of all time. I don't even call this a dirty trick. I mean, I know the intent for using that term, the intent of using that term. This is scandalous, dirty trick. I mean, this is criminal is what this is. Using this cutout law firm to make the payment. More and more people are using law firms to be the middlemen in any kind of illicit transaction to secure attorney-client privilege so that nobody can legally describe what you're doing. It's a way to keep it secret. And now the Mueller investigation is just totally out of control with no limits on anything. And we know that the meddling has all happened on the part of the Democrats. Obama and Putin, what is this? Tell Vladimir to be patient. I'll have more flexibility after the election. What is that? If that's not meddling. Now, the war between the intelligence agencies and Trump has not let up at all. Former CIA Director John Brennan suggested fear played into Trump's behavior toward the Russians on Sunday in a blistering interview on CNN. Brennan called Trump intimidated by Vladimir Putin. Trump called Brennan, Clapper, and James Comey political hacks. Trump added that he believed that Putin was insulted by these accusations. Then Trump backtracked later on Sunday during a news conference in Vietnam, saying that he was, quote, with our intelligence agencies. Now, this is not complicated. Trump did not backtrack. What Trump was pointedly saying was that he supports the intelligence agencies as they are currently led and constituted. He was not including the current CIA and NSA, his people running these agencies. He was not including them in his comments about Brennan and Clapper and Comey, all former Obamaites. He was pointedly suggesting that he didn't believe what Clapper and Brennan and Comey were saying. And who could blame him? These guys believed that Hillary and Russia created the Trump dossier. They believed it. Hillary goes out and has this thing manufactured, and they acted as though they believed it. Whether they did or not, if they knew it was made up, if these guys knew it was a pack of lies and still operated on it, that's even worse. And I, for one, wouldn't be surprised if we learned that they all knew this thing was trumped up. Because to believe that it wasn't, who believes this kind of stuff? People that want to. I'm talking the golden showers, the hiring the prostitutes and all this. There's not one thing, I don't care what you've heard, there's not one thing in this dossier that's been verified. So these guys either believed it or they pretended to in order to begin their investigation and spying on the Trump campaign. And to me, that is one of the worst examples of intelligence agencies going rogue that I know of. These two men, Clapper and Brennan, and then Comey, are trying to overthrow an elected president via a silent coup based entirely upon lies created by the Hillary campaign. And now Trump knows full well what's going on, so he goes out and references it. And these things, these guys are having a cow now claiming that Trump is intimidated by Putin, that Trump is afraid of Putin, that Trump is totally outclassed by Putin, that Trump is over his head. Trump doesn't know. This is so fishy. These guys are Obamaites. They're part of the swamp. There is no way they're going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. Now, here's something else that's happening out there. Now, all of these people in the deep state, in the intelligence agency, the FBI, and the intelligence community, they're now acting hurt and shocked and surprised that people are questioning them. I don't think they have any right to be surprised if people question them. You know, for 8 years, they go around telling people that Benghazi was caused by a video. For 8 years, they run around and they tell everybody Iran is cooperating, and Iran does not want to establish nuclear weaponry. They tell us for all of these years that the Muslim Brotherhood are secular moderates. They tell us that al-Qaeda has been decimated. We had intelligence agencies publicly calling out their superiors for politicizing their analyses to fit the Obama political narratives. You have James Clapper, who may have perjured himself in congressional testimony on metadata collection. The metadata of the phone, they were all of these wireless wiretaps of every phone they could sweep up. You have a record like this when you have people running around claiming Benghazi was caused by when everything has been politically tailored to favor whatever Obama and Hillary want it to be. It makes only sense to question these people, but they're acting like we have no right. We have no right to question them, and we don't even have any right to be surprised, as though they're infallible. They are the IC, they're intelligence community, and they cannot be questioned. They're the biggest patriots. They're only doing this or that for the best good of the country. They politicized everything according to what Obama wanted it to be. Come on, John Brennan, who once voted for a Communist Party candidate, and I think even has a Muslim prayer rug, if I'm not mistaken, Clapper, the National Intelligence Director, and we know the wishy-washiness of Comey on all of this. These guys just want to run around. They want to be able to get away with saying, trust us, just trust us. Well, I'm sorry. It's tough. We know that Benghazi was not caused by a video. We know the Muslim Brotherhood's not a bunch of moderates. We know that al-Qaeda was never decimated or cut down to size. And we know that Iran is nuking up. And you tell us just the exact opposite. Oh, I got to take a break. I just saw the clock. I'm in deep, deep trouble here. No, I'm not saying that the intelligence community today is a bunch of politicized hacks. I'm saying they were. I'm saying that Brennan and Clapper and, I don't know, Comey. Look, folks, do not forget we had those whistleblowers. This didn't get a lot of news. But there were whistleblowers who said that their intel, these were analysts, and said that their intel reports were rewritten after they analyzed whatever it was happening around the world. They would submit their analysis, and it was rewritten to advance the Obama agenda, especially during the campaign. My point is that the Obama Democrats, the Clinton Democrats, the Biden Democrats, you name it, politicize everything. They corrupt everything. The Clintons are one of the most corrupt families. They corrupt and they damage everything they get hold of, and they twist it and turn it and use every institution and tradition to their own political advantage. And that's what Trump was saying. And if Trump wasn't saying it, I have said it and would say it again. This Benghazi video, the people that got away with that think it isn't any big deal. I'm still outraged by that whole Benghazi thing, and I'm still insulted. They still try to maintain. Obama went to the UN to tell the world that it was a video that caused that to happen, and we couldn't do anything about it because of our laws. Yeah, the First Amendment gave this video maker the right to start a riot in Benghazi. I'm saying that the intelligence agencies and people working with Obama were corrupted by him for his purposes. Greetings and welcome back, El Rushmo. Talent on loan from God. Let me just give you one example of what a hack John Brennan is. Now, he was the CIA director under Obama, and he's the guy we've got audio sound bites from, who alludes, he first denies that the Trump dossier was used as a basis for his investigation of Trump. And later on in the same interview, kind of back to is not so certain, leaves it open with a little word trickery. So, look, it's nothing I can prove, but I'm just going to tell you the things I've heard these people say. I don't doubt for, let me put it this way. If it were to ever be confirmed, I'd be the last guy surprised. I think these people have been so polluted and corrupted by the political desire to use all of these institutions to smash their political enemies. That's exactly how they've been corrupted. That I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they knew that dossier was fake and still used it as the basis to investigate Trump. Because the point of the investigation is not to find anything. These people are not setting themselves up so that they will fail if they don't find anything. The ongoing investigation, the never-ending leaks, the anonymous sources for over a year in the drive-by media, this endless thing that Mueller is doing with these indictments here or there, the impression is being created that Trump is unfit and therefore is certainly a qualified for impeachment president. And they don't have to find anything. But as long as that dossier remains in the news, then what it says can be repeated over and over again. And it becomes its own justification. So I don't have personally any doubt whatsoever that Brennan, and they're all in cahoots. Hillary takes over the DNC a year before the election, ends up rigging the election for herself against crazy Bernie. The DNC servers are hacked. By the way, you know what else has been learned? Get this. No, this is almost, to me, is other bombshell material. We have now learned that all of those emails at WikiLeaks were written, many of them were written after the DNC had been hacked. Now, folks, they know they were hacked. They didn't let the FBI investigate, no forensic investigation or analysis. Instead, they used this outfit called CrowdStrike, which we now know has links to Fusion GPS, which is who Hillary hired through the cutout law firm to write the Trump dossier. So after they're hacked, emails then show up at WikiLeaks, emails that were written and composed after they were hacked. Who does this? If you find out your computer has been hacked and that somebody has had access to it and may still, and if you know that you've denied anybody the right to come in and investigate and find out why, would you continue to use that network or those computers to write sensitive, confidential stuff? So what in the world explains that? Well, we dial back, circle back to an often heard claim that it was an inside job and not the Russians. An inside job now makes sense. If it's an inside job to hack into the DNC network and their computers and servers, and then after that's known, emails continue to be composed that end up at WikiLeaks, then somebody in there was trying to sabotage whatever was going on there. Now, the Democrats are running around, Russians did it, the Russians did it, and the Russians were working with Trump and colluding here or there. But none of this holds up. Now, Brennan, to give you an example of what a hack this guy is, when he was working for Bush, that shocks you too, right? When he was working for Bush, he swore up and down that enhanced interrogations, including waterboarding, was legal. It was necessary. And once he decided he wanted to work for Obama with his desire to become head of the CIA, he completely changed his tune and said that waterboarding was illegal and torture. Now, in case you've forgotten these whistleblowers, the intel reports that the whistleblowers were talking about flew in the face of Obama's campaign claims that he had terrorism on the run. Remember Obama talking about how ISIS was on the run and al-Qaeda we decimated them after we had taken care of bin Laden? Obama was out pretty much claiming victory over all this, except ISIS was wreaking havoc everywhere. Now, the analysts were reporting that not only was terrorism not on the run, but it was on the rise, especially with ISIS out there. But the senior people at the CIA and at the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Department of National Intelligence, was what Clapper ran. They had these reports changed, reportedly on Obama's orders. This is what the whistleblowers said. But given the loyalty of people like Clapper and Brennan, they didn't need to be told what Obama wanted to hear, just like Lois Lerner didn't need to be told what to do at the IRS. But the whistleblowers were out saying this. Now, the point is that both Brennan and Clapper are presented by the media as apolitical and uninterested, that they are clean and pure as the wind-driven snow, that they are driven by the best of patriotic impulses, and all they're seeking to do is defend and protect their country and the Constitution. Yeah, to the extent that Obama wants it defended and protected. Whatever Obama needed politicized, it was politicized. And this is what the whistleblowers pointed out. Folks, the deep corruption, when I talk about the traditions and institutions that have defined our country, and they're many and varied, but what isn't politicized these days? Marriage, the NFL, I mean, you name it. And now intelligence and the IRS. And this is what leftists do, because this is what their purpose is. And this is, in their view, what government's purpose is. Government is to be used as a hammer. The whole point of having power is to use it, to bludgeon people into agreement with you, to shape, bend, form, and flake a culture. It's not about individual liberty and freedom. That's not what the purpose of government, to ensure that. No. We can't trust individual liberty and freedom because we can't trust individuals to vote the right way, to spend their money the right way, to give to the right charity, whatever it is we want them to do. We have to force them to do it because they can't and won't do it on their own. Not bright enough. They don't care enough. Whatever. There is some are calling this breaking news out there. I guess it's a very short soundbite of 4 seconds. It's Jeffersontown, Kentucky this morning. Mitch McConnell had a press conference, and a reporter and McConnell had the briefest of exchanges about sexual misconduct allegations against Roy Moore. Now, listen fast. It goes by in 4 seconds.
Do you believe these allegations to be true?
I believe the women, yes.
You believe these allegations to be true? I believe the women, yes. Have you ever heard Mitch McConnell say a word about Bob Menendez? Have you? No, I'm asking. I haven't, but I'll be honest. I don't follow the Senate leadership day in and day out. Menendez is a Democrat senator on trial for all kinds of corruption, including sexual predatoring with one of his big donors. And McConnell has been accused of identical things that Roy Moore's been accused of. And I'm just asking, does anybody remember McConnell condemning? This is what I mean by the left circles the wagons around their perverts and we throw ours overboard, no questions asked. Now, to some, it's a matter of morality. Look, who wants somebody like this in the club? Who wants somebody like this? Even the allegations make us nervous. This guy's an oddball to begin with. That's what they think. Have you heard the latest? Wait a minute. We can certainly get rid of somebody on the base allegations. We don't have to wait for proof. That's only in a court of law. No. He's not entitled to benefit of the doubt. There is no waiting for proof. That's only relevant when we're talking about in court or being judged before the law. But if we, the United States Senate, don't want somebody here because of what has been alleged about him, we are perfectly within our right. We don't have to wait for whether there's truth or not, or guilt or innocence. That's what's being relied on. Here's the stories from Daily Caller. Most WikiLeaks emails weren't even written until after the DNC knew that it was hacked. Now, this story is actually from last week, but it was buried by all the other news out there. But if this is true, I mean, this is a blockbuster development, too. And if it's not a blockbuster, at least it's something that we haven't been told before. And what this story basically says is that the majority of the DNC emails posted by WikiLeaks were written after Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz knew about the hack and even after CrowdStrike was on the job. Now, how would you explain this? Let me set it up again. You're the DNC, you're Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. You and Hillary Clinton have taken over the DNC because this time there isn't going to be a surprise candidate like Barack Hussein O. And there isn't going to be anybody come along and wrest the nomination away from Hillary Clinton. We're going to wire this thing and we're going to get it so that nobody watches the debates. It's just going to be crazy Bernie and that weirdo Martin O'Malley, and that's it. And we don't care how many delegates Bernie gets because in the end, Hillary's going to get more. All of this has been done. Then your hack happens. Then your computer network and your computers, your servers, and all get hacked. You're Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. You continue using that hacked network to compose emails. Most of the WikiLeaks emails that you and I saw that were posted on WikiLeaks were written after Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz knew the DNC was hacked. Remember, she didn't immediately tell the board of whatever they are, supervisors, directors at the DNC. There is a possibility. There is a potential rational explanation, and it is this: that Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, who was acting as a Hillary surrogate and was a partner in rigging the election, was afraid there was information on that server that she didn't want the FBI or even the DNC leadership to see. She didn't tell the leadership about the hack until after it was reported in the Washington Post. So, whatever they didn't want known was apparently powerful enough that it was worth running the risk to continue using that hacked system and not tell anybody it had been hacked, because that's the only reason people would keep writing emails. If they didn't know that they were posting and sending emails on a hacked system, because she didn't tell them, because she didn't want whatever was on there to be seen, and that's why the FBI wasn't in there. And I think it may be more even than evidence that Hillary and Debbie Blabbermouth had rigged everything. But it's important that people writing and sending these emails did not know that the network on which they were operating had been hacked. A brief timeout, a brief obscene profit break, my friends, and we be coming right back. Yeah, I didn't watch a football game last night. So I get an email. I got an email from a buddy who said, "You won't believe what they're doing at halftime in the NFL game tonight." I said, "What?" "They're interviewing Biden." Matt Lauer is interviewing Biden. I said, "What?" "We only interview political people at the Super Bowl." And he wrote back and said, it's Biden's book is out, and it's I guess it's a preview of Biden's interview that is going to run, I guess, today, maybe tomorrow on the Today Show, conducted by Matt Lauer. But I thought, are you kidding me? You're going to put Joe Biden in the halftime of an NFL football game? I'm asking, did these people not know? I mean, this is NBC that's deciding to do this. They don't need to clear it with the NFL. Maybe they did. I don't know. But of all people, Joe Biden? Look, he's a loyal Democrat, and there's nobody, Joe Biden's best speeches have been covering for Obama at the two conventions. But the guy hasn't won the Democrat nomination on his own. He's never going to. The fact that he's at top of the heap of their candidates for 2020, and NBC decides to put him at halftime of Sunday Night Football against the Patriots, and you've got the Broncos. You can anybody you want. You can interview Belichick if you can get him. They did Elway pregame, I'm told. That just blew my mind, especially all he's got is a book. You're doing a pre-pub book interview for Biden on Sunday Night Football. And I thought, man, they're doubling down. You know what? I almost like they're trying to learn from Trump, but doing it wrong. Whenever Trump, quote unquote, steps in it and the media has this, "Oh my God," kind of reaction, Trump doubles down on it. Well, this is almost like the NFL's, "Oh, you think we're politicizing this too much? You think there's too much anti-America protest? Well, here, take this politics." And then they ram Joe Biden down everybody's throat at halftime of what apparently was a dull game anyway. It must have been. If Joe Biden was the highlight of the night, that's got to be bad. Okay, let me see if I understand this. Hillary Clinton pays for opposition research, which is called a dossier, to give it credibility. The dossier is sourced by Russian operatives. It's littered with lies. The FBI used it to justify spying on Trump. With no evidence of criminal behavior by Trump, Trump is investigated by a special counsel who has lots of conflicts. It seems to me the crime here is the investigation, not Trump. We have this backwards. Hey, want to hear a little factoid? The age difference between Roy Moore and the woman in question was 14 years. He was 14 years older than she was. You know what the age difference was between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky? 27 years. Just saying. I'm just saying. One of them is a celebrated star of the Democrat Party. One of them remains the big dog of the Democrat Party. One remains the guy they all want to be like. Bill Clinton. Now, the Joe Biden interview. If I didn't know better, I would say that NBC's trying to drive their own ratings down in order to maybe get a better deal with the NFL when new rights are negotiated. Why in the world would you do that? I didn't see it. Did you guys watch the Biden? No, you did? Let me ask you. Did Matt Lauer ask Biden how he has got the nickname of Hansy? You do know that Biden has that nickname. Hansy isn't Hansy. You know why? It's kind of, you're kind of close to it there, Mr. Snerdley. He gets kind of handsy with women. He'll rub their shoulders and keep going, depending on the vibe that he gets. Not kidding. It's just old Joe. You know, Joe can look at a guy in a wheelchair. Stand up, Chuck. Stand up, Chuck, and let him. Oh, my God, what am I talking? Oh, God bless you. Let's all stand up for Chuck. That's just Joe. One of the women that Mitch McConnell believes over Judge Moore is a woman who worked for Joe Biden. Did you know this? You did know that this woman worked for Biden, who hates Roy Moore, by the way. Biden does. And this woman who cavorted with Moore, who worked for Biden, has called for Trump to be impeached since Inauguration Day. And now she has deleted her anti-Moore postings from Facebook and her rants about removing Trump from office. She's deleted those things. Why would she do that? Well, I don't think she wants to appear to be a partisan hack. She's taken down all of the anti-Trump stuff. She has removed all of the anti-Moore postings and the anti-Trump postings from Facebook. Anyway, greetings and welcome back, folks. Rush Limbaugh here, serving humanity simply by showing up. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. Here, I've gone back and got the audio soundbite. Grab number 23. Because remember now, Trump talking to reporters on Air Force One, and he said, hey, look, you know what? Every time Putin sees me, he says he didn't do it. And I believe him. Every time I see Putin, I ask him, did you meddle in our election? Did you help me win? Did you cheat and help me win? Putin says, no, I didn't do it, and I'm getting tired of the allegation. I didn't do it, I wouldn't do it. Everybody mocks Trump, makes fun of Trump, laughs at Trump for being such a tool when it comes to Putin. Okay, December 16th, 2016. This is, it's basically 11 months before the election. It's at the White House. Obama held a press conference, and during the Q&A, the AP correspondent, Josh Letterman, said, Mr. President, there's a perception that you are letting President Putin get away with interfering in the U.S. election. Can we remind everybody of this? This was a question actually asked of Obama. This may have been one of the hardest hitting questions. There's a perception you are letting President Putin get away with interfering in the election. Now, remember, this had been floating around all of 2016, and Obama had refuted it a number of times and had pointed out that it was impossible to do. He had said it couldn't be done because there are too many precincts, too many machines, too many people, and too many unknowns. You don't know what states you need to cheat in. You can't cheat in all of them. You don't know what precincts to cheat in, and you don't know what you need to do because you don't know who's going to vote for who. And he was exactly right about it. It would be veritably impossible to rig a U.S. election this way, the way there were, Russian hacking. Voter machines are not even connected to the internet. But the media during this year, 2016, when Obama was out saying how hard it would be to do it, there was a perception that he was not hammering the Russians enough. Hence this question. There's a perception you're letting Putin get away with interfering, and that a response that nobody knows about or a look-back review just won't cut it. Are you prepared to call out President Putin by name for ordering this hacking?
In early September, when I saw President Putin in China, I felt that the most effective way to ensure that that didn't happen was to talk to him directly and tell him to cut it out. There were going to be some serious consequences if he didn't.
I'm sorry, this is 2 months after the election. It's a month after the election. I was getting my years 2015. So this is even better. They'd already started the hacking campaign. The Russians colluded. The Russians stole the election, colluded with Hillary. It had been going on throughout the year, but now it had really ratcheted up because the Clinton campaign zeroed in on this after the loss. So I got my dates confused here, folks. But this was after the election when he gets this question. And he says, and isn't this typical of this erudite, elite, sophisticate? And the media just swoons over it. They swoon over an answer like this. In early September, when I saw President Putin in China, I felt the most effective way to ensure that it didn't happen was to talk to him directly. Tell him to cut it out. So here's a guy who used to rank high up in the KGB, and you tell him to cut it out. And what? He's quaking in his boots? And Putin goes back to the Politburo. We have big trouble. Big trouble, gentlemen. American president very, very angry. Told me to cut it out. And they break down in hysterical laughter. He told me to cut it out. Can you imagine the laugh? If this really happened, yet I told him to cut it out. Cut it out. There were going to be some serious consequences if he didn't, okay? Serious consequences. What are the serious consequences? Because they obviously didn't cut it out, because the Democrats are basing the fact that they lost the election on the fact that Putin didn't cut it out, that he kept cutting it in. So what were the consequences? Where was this famous Obama red line? I told Vlad, I told him, you better cut it out. You better cut it out, pal. There's going to be consequences, just like there were consequences to the red line in Syria that weren't. What are the consequences? There weren't any This is just Obama blathering on and the media applauding dutifully like they're at the opera. Polite applause. This is interesting, too. This is Mark Penn. Now, this guy, he runs a think tank type operation at Harvard now. And he's a former pollster for Hillary and Bill and the whole Clinton operation. Name is Mark Penn, former Democrat strategist. And he's on Fox and Friends today. Brian Kilmeade says, what should a Republican take from Ed Gillespie's loss in Virginia last week? Karl Rove came out and said, listen, Ed Gillespie got more votes than the other Republican candidate for governor when he was running. Just more people came out and voted for the Democrat. So, Mr. Penn, what do we need to take away from this?
Oh, I think when you look at the exit polls, the view here is far from simple. Number one, I think the Republican Party and the establishment itself is 5 points lower than Trump. Right there, that explains a lot of the problems I think that Gillespie got into. And, of course, Democrats had a moderate candidate, an Army veteran. And remember, McAuliffe did a pretty good job, had a 54% approval rating.
Yeah, and he legalized voting for 200,000 felons and a bunch of questionable refugees and illegal immigrants. McAuliffe did do a good job. But look at this. I think the Republican Party and the establishment itself is 5 points lower than Trump. This guy, what he's, for those of you in Rio Linda, this Democrat establishment consultant is saying it's the GOP establishment that lost in Virginia, not Donald Trump. And it takes a Democrat consultant to get that truth out. How many of you know who George Takei is? George Takei was the original Star Wars. He has long ago, Star Trek, right. Star Trek, Star Wars, Deep Space Nine, 6 to 1/2 dozen the other to me. Anyway, he came out long ago and he was gay. And now there are allegations that he performed lewd, illicit sex acts on a male model back in, 1914. The guy's ancient. And he is denying it. He was accused of sexual assault by somebody named Scott Brunton, and Takei is beside himself with frustration here. He doesn't understand this. He doesn't remember it. He doesn't think it happened. He thinks this guy's making it up, but then he doesn't think people like him would make things up. They're too honorable, so he thinks there's some other explanation. So George Takei has now settled on the explanation that Russian bots on social media are spreading claims that he drugged and sexually assaulted a male model. No. The UK Daily Mail, right here it is, UK Daily Mail. Russian bots on social media are spreading the claim that George Takei drugged and sexually assaulted a male model. In a tweet that's now been deleted, Takei shared a graph of trending topics among bots. The chart on trend shows Takei and George Takei high on the trending list. Takei said the sexual assault allegations against him simply did not occur. On Sunday, Donald Trump Jr. lashed out at Takei for accusing Ivanka Trump of playing the victim in June. Over the summer, Takei claimed that Ivanka was playing the victim after she said she was surprised at the viciousness that greeted her father's presidency. He had a chart. By the way, the behavior described by this supposed alleged victim of Takei sounds, well, I'll leave it at that. Well, it just doesn't sound that out of the ordinary. I don't know. Who am I? I don't know. I'm a stranger to that world, so State Department, here we move on. Oops, no, we're not. I got to take a break. If I don't take a break now, the next segment after the break is going to be real short. That gets frustrating. So we'll take it now, and we'll come back. And you know what? Phone calls. People have been waiting patiently, and it's time to pay off on that. We'll do that when we get back. Don't go away. And we're back with Rush Limbaugh and the most listened to radio talk show in America. Here we go back to Atlanta. This is Dana. Great to have you with us. Hi.
Hi, Rush. How are you today?
Fine and dandy. So glad you called.
Well, I'm a huge fan. I'm glad I got through. It's an honor to talk to you. I'm a red, white, and blue patriot American who is not tired of winning yet, and a former fan of the NFL, which brings me to my question for you.
Okay.
If you could replace Roger Goodell as NFL commissioner, what do you think you would do at this point in time to try to bring the NFL back to its glory days and get people like me to tune in again?
That is a big question.
Right.
And to do that question justice, I would ask for time to actually seriously think about it. But I'm not skating. I'm going to give you an answer here, but this is something because I know you're serious about it. Let me just give you some spontaneous thoughts, because I've seen that you were going to ask this for a couple minutes up there on the call board, so I've been thinking about it here for the last 15 or 20 minutes. I don't know how yet I would do all of these things or some of these things, but these are things that I think need to be done. The NFL needs to get out of the courtroom. The NFL needs to somehow stop and curtail all of the news that has to do with trials and courts and suspensions and stuff. The NFL has to get back to the game of football being the star, to being the attraction, to being the allure, to being the mystique. as such. You know, I once, at a Super Bowl, I had a chance, I was a guest of Alex Spanos, who owned the Chargers, and I had a chance to sit next to the commissioner at the time, Paul Tagliabue, who was very leery of me, as most everybody is. He's a powerful, influential media figure. But I elicited from him, and he's a lawyer, and I elicited from him an answer to a question that I found fascinating. And the sum of it is, he told me that when he needed to learn about the game, its history and its future, he went to the coaches. He said the coaches are the people who really know this game, who really love this game, who have invested so much in it. Now, this is not to slight the players at all, and it's not to put the coaches on a higher pedestal. But I thought about what he said, and ever since he said that, I have been listening to coaches in a different way and reading about them, studying them. I've gotten to know a couple of coaches. They work harder than anybody else in the league in terms of more the time they spend. They handle every operation that the team engages in. They determine the meals. They determine travel, logistics, roster. Well, the general manager control the roster, but if it's a good relationship between the GM and the coach, it's a good partnership. I would find out where the strengths of the game are and simply try to focus on them. Now, are you looking for specifics in my answer, like what would I do about player suspensions? What would I do about protests of the flag? That kind of stuff? Are you looking?
Yeah, sure, all that stuff. I know that you're a mastermind when it comes to the NFL. You're a huge fan yourself, as was I. And
well, when it comes to the
really
flag,
a great hypothetical to see what the great Rush Limbaugh.
Well, let's get specific to flag and protest. This is what I think I would do, and I expect people to laugh me out of this studio today. But as commissioner, I would travel around and ask to meet with every team, every player. And I would take the time to explain what this league is and what it is to the people who enjoy it, the fans, the sponsors. And I would ask for their cooperation in putting the best foot forward for our business that could possibly be put forward. I would, you have things that make you unhappy about America. We all do. You have things that make you unhappy about your job. We all do. And I would try my best to get them to deal with those things like every other employee deals with these things. One way or the other, but to not use the league and the game as the stage for all of this, because it's ultimately harming the product, and no business worth its salt allows the product or the people working for it to be damaged and tarnished without consequences. But I'm of the impression I could reach these guys. Now, that's where I may be all wet. But I'm under the impression I could reach them and at least get them to appear to be unified when it comes to the business's desires as to how it wishes to be seen as an American business. I could be totally naive about that. Now I got to take a break right in the middle of what I was going to say. But we'll be back. Don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a belief that most people, and particularly people of fame, notoriety, really don't know how they are seen by other people. And there's a good reason for that. Everybody's so self-focused. It's just human nature. Everybody thinks about themselves. Everybody is thinking about their own insecurities or dealing with them. Everybody is too busy doing that to even be aware of how other people see him. Now, you may think I'm contradicting myself here, but what I mean specifically, let me give you an illustration. I once heard a professional athlete, a baseball player, don't remember who, was talking about answering questions about the grind of 162 games. That's, the NFL plays 18. If you count preseason, 20, with a bye week in there. The NFL travels 8 weeks a year. Baseball players play 162 games, and the travel is nightmare compared to the NFL. And I've worked for the Kansas City Royals, although it was not somebody who worked for the Royals that mentioned this to me. But I asked him, how do you deal with the grind? I mean, you can't have the same energy every day. There's too many days, too many games. Human moods are too up and down. How do you get through it? He said, I try to remember one thing. This is a player telling me this. The player said every day, when I take the field to go out and play and get ready, I try to remember that there are thousands of people watching this game who are for the first time watching a major league game, or maybe the only time. I may be the reason they're here. I tell myself, I may be the reason they have gone to the trouble to spend the money to come here. And when I tell myself that, then I feel a duty to do my best. Now, contrast that with some people today. If Pizza Hut pulls out, so what? Podunk, the league's $75 billion or whatever. We can put up with one. Contrast that laissez-faire attitude about losing a sponsor, which to me is a big deal, to the player saying, I feel duty-bound to give my best because there may be some kids in this stadium today, they've never been here before, and it may be the only time this year they ever get to come. And what happens if I take the easy road, take the day off, or give it half effort or whatever? And that's what I mean. This guy's very much aware of how he is seen. Now, I don't think most people are, because of their own self-awareness of insecurities and their desire to be seen a certain way, taking precedence over actually figure out how they are seen. I think if you can appeal to people to actually get them to understand, in this case we're talking about NFL players, if you could get to them and make them understand how they are, they're the people that are devoted to the NFL, the fans that are watching on TV, they're not racists. They're not bigots. And they're not trying to put you in jail. And they're none of what you have been told you're surrounded by. These are people that have put you on pedestals. These are people that hero worship you. They're of all races. They're of all ages. They're kids. They're seasoned citizens, grandmothers, mothers, cousins, fathers. And they are here to see you because you are you and because you do what you do. And there are not very many of you capable of doing what you do as well as you do it. And you owe them. They're investing all that. You owe them. You should want to be seen the way they see you. And then some, I don't want the pressure of being a role model, man. I'm not talking about being a role model. People are not paying to come here and see somebody express a grievance about the country or about the boss or about whatever. You know, I may be totally naive, but I'm under the impression I could reach them. But that would just be one thing if I were actually a commish. That's just one thing. That's an immediate problem. This league has got problems that certainly those are serious, but they go way beyond that. This league's going to remain what it is if half the news is related to the law and courts and suspensions and all this stuff. There have to be ways to improve that and make this better. But my point about investing in the coach, these are the coaches are the people that know the game, they inside and out, and they have ideas on I'm sure they do, on what could be done to improve things. But I don't think that in the structure of the teams they're asked much. But anyway, that's off the top of my head answer. There'd be much more after I actually spent serious time thinking about it. Back after this, folks. Hang tough. And we go back to the phones. This is Bobby. Bobby, San Diego. Great to Bobby, do you miss the Chargers or do you not care?
Well, mixed emotions. Like the team, not the ownership.
Right.
That left us.
Right.
Hey, Rush, this is maybe changing the pace a little bit. I have a thought about what Trump might do. I think McConnell and the Republican senators, there's always 3 of them that'll screw up the works. I think it's time for Trump to go to Plan B. I think he should go to Heidi Heitkamp, Democrat from North Dakota, who's running next year. She won last time by less than 1%. And I would say, Heidi, I got a deal for you. You support my tax bill. I will make you a promise. I will not go to North Dakota, and I will not do what destroys everybody I run against, and that is hold a Trump rally. Alternatively, if you want to vote against the will of the people of North Dakota, I'm going to make your life hell, and you can enjoy your last 11 months as a U.S. senator.
Well,
I would do the same.
That's not Plan B. That's the way Trump operates Plan A.
Well, I think Plan A should be invoked then. I know he did it before, but everybody's so worried about, what's going to happen to Judge Moore because McConnell's trying to throw him under the bus. I think it's time to go to the Democrats and stand out, have the Chuck and Nancy show again. Get 2 or 3 of those. Get Joe Manchin. He wants to be a senator next year. He doesn't want to lose.
Here's the approach. You may be on this. I mean, Trump could go to these guys and say, look, we got problems on my party, but your party has no problem with sex perverts. So you guys are not going to run anybody out of your party. I can really use your assistance here on the on some of this stuff, and maybe even try to convince them to change parties. Sweeten the deal, change parties. And promise them that if they do get involved in some perversion sex stories, Trump will do his best to defend them if they're worried about that changing parties. But I get where you're. To be serious, I get where you're coming from here. That Trump needs to branch out because depending on the Republicans, there's not enough of them, and number 2, it's not obvious they want him to succeed. Right? That's what you're really driving at here.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think Trump would rather. I think it would be his style to put the. To poke his finger in Mitch McConnell's eye and say, I don't need your votes. I don't care what Jeff Flake and you and little Bobby Corker do. I've got the votes. You guys are the pikers.
I don't think that's what he wants to do. I actually think Trump wants to try to unify with these people, with McConnell. Still, I don't know how long his patience is going to be for it. But if you just look at the numbers, he's not going to get anywhere. Even if he could have massive success persuading Democrats, he's not going to get 50 of them. You might say, we won't need 50. If you could get 10, then you could deal with 10 Republican defections. But depending on how far he went with the Democrats, how quote unquote loyal would the Republicans be to Trump stay with him? I don't know. Those are interesting things. But one of the things I think you're bouncing off of is that Trump is not defined by convention. And he is his own man and can try to put together a coalition however he wishes. And especially now that he's got ample evidence that it ought not be this hard to get your party to support your agenda. I keep sitting here and dreaming what it would look like if there could just be, what I always been saying, 3 months, 6 months of the entire Republican caucus in Congress unifying behind Trump. Now, I know the answer is that they're all establishment types, and many of them really don't want Trump to succeed. But at some point, something's got to give here. And I really think there's a lot of people, Bobby, that are sitting around waiting for Mueller and hoping Mueller comes up with something that drives Trump out, and that would make all of this much easier on them. That's one of my, not fears, but one of my suspicions. Thank you so much for being with us today, folks. There are a couple things that we didn't get to today that we will tomorrow. And apparently Gloria Allred's coming forth today with yet another woman named in the Washington Post story about Roy Moore. So we'll be up to speed on that as well. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.